Well, good morning, Red Wolves. My name is Reich Robinson, and this week at A-State, campus activities resumed on Monday, February 22nd after last week's snowstorm. A huge thanks to the facilities management crew for working all throughout last week to keep campus roadways and sidewalks safe and clear. The Student Activities Board and Interfraternity Council hosted a crawfish boil on Tuesday, February 23rd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Students passing by Heritage Plaza lawn at this time had the opportunity to eat crawfish, corn, and potatoes with king cake for dessert. The dance marathon also had a benefit night at Andy's that same day, supporting the Arkansas Children's Hospital. Arkansas State University was designated for the 12th time as a military-friendly school. After being awarded a bronze rating for 2 years, the ranking was moved this year to silver. Tonight, at February 25th at 6 p.m., students can attend Representative Jamie Scott's Zoom lecture presented by the 2021 Black History Month Committee. Representative Scott is a member of the Arkansas House of Representatives and will be discussing the future state of community activism. A major segment of our show every week will be dedicated to my co-host, Noah Gregory, sitting down with an A-State student or faculty member, discussing various important topics. Last week, Noah had the chance to sit down with A-State freshman Kinley Larmoyeux, a psychology major, to discuss the impact that COVID-19 has had on college students nationwide. This week, we share some of those highlights of that conversation with you.
My name is Noah Gregory, and I'm joined today by Kinley Larmoyeux. All right, before we get started with the actual topic of the show today, one of my favorite parts of creating conversational content such as this is kind of getting to hear stories from different people. I really love getting to know people and getting to know their story. So can you tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of what the story behind Kinley Larmoyeux is?
Yeah, so I'm studying psychology here at A-State. I decided to be a psych major because my goal is to be a family therapist. After the 4-year, I'm hoping to go to grad school. Maybe that's seminary, maybe that's just for a regular public 2-year degree, but I am a big extrovert. I'm passionate about people, helping people, and building relationships. So pretty much everything I love about life is centered around other people. I work at Nothing Bundt Cakes, and I get to be a crafter there, so decorating the cakes is a lot of fun. I love art. I like writing. I have my own blog, and so being outdoors. So that's just a little bit about me.
I don't know if you remember this, Kinley, but one of our first interactions was actually a conversation that we had, I think over Messenger, Facebook Messenger, about your website specifically, livingloudly.org, which you mentioned. It's a mental health blog. Could you explain to our viewers in a bit more detail just exactly what that site is and what it functions as?
Absolutely. Yeah, so I started this blog kind of just to share and expel my personal journey through navigating mental health, because it's a topic that not a lot of people want to talk about, that something they've gone through. So I have generalized anxiety disorder and some other different physical health things going on. And as a middle schooler and high schooler, it was really hard to find resources and other people who could talk me through it. And so I felt like I kind of had to go it alone. But even though of course, I have a great support group and friends and family, but it's just hard when you're trying to figure it all out for yourself. So it's a way for me to kind of share my story, and hopefully some other people can feel like that's something they're going through too, and know that they're not by themselves. So I've written some on anxiety. That's probably the biggest topic near and dear to my heart, just because it's something I've struggled with for so long. But then also I'm taking it from a Christian perspective, because I grew up in the church, but the past few years, the Lord has really been working on my heart. And I think that it's important for me to also say, hey, this is mental health. This is how we can navigate that. But here's the goodness of Christ through it too, just on a personal note. So that's why I started it. And I'm doing online college right now, so it's been really hard to just sit down and find time to write. But I'm working on one right now that I'm hoping to have published by next week. So
I'm curious to hear your perspective and your personal experience with your expectations of what college was going to be like, what you expected it to be like versus the reality of what it actually was, given the fact that your first semester began in the middle of a global health pandemic.
So I have always been excited for college. My dad worked in college ministry, And so I kind of grew up on the UCA college campus and the UA Fort Smith college campus and all these different college campuses he worked on. And everyone always says, you know, college is going to be the best years of your life. That's where you're going to make your best friends. So even before the pandemic, I had high expectations for college. I'm a social butterfly. So I was like, man, I'm going to make friends. I'm going to get along with my roommates. It's going to be great. And even with the pandemic, I was hopeful that I would be able to get plugged in and meet new people and build new friendships. But it was so hard. I really, really struggled. The first few months of college for me were that was one of the most difficult periods of my life, probably because I was so isolated. Most of my in-person classes switched online. So at that point, I'm just in my dorm room doing online classes. But thankfully, I got plugged in with the Baptist Collegiate Ministry on campus, and I made some really good friends through there. So I think that the pandemic really took away and underwhelmed me in expectations of just meeting people, which is what everyone I feel like is excited for in college, is the new beginning of it.
Now, you mentioned that you got involved with the Baptist on campus. Were there other alternative methods that you used to stay in touch with your friends or make new friends while isolating yourself, or making it a little more bearable while you've been isolated?
Yeah, I was really blessed in that I knew a couple people from my high school coming to A-State. So I had them, and together we were kind of able to branch out and meet new people together. So that was initial process. I felt like I at least had some partnership in trying to meet new people. But I did a lot of FaceTime back home. My best friend and I, we met in middle school, and we've been best friends for a number of years. So a lot of FaceTime, House Party. I don't know if you've heard of that app where like multiple people can jump onto a FaceTime call, sort of. We've used that. And what's been really hard is my family that I couldn't see. I haven't seen my grandmother and I don't even know how long. So we've taught her and gotten her to download different apps for games that we could like play with her virtually. Because I know that not only the pandemic is hard on us young people who are, you know, trying to still enjoy this new season of life, but also on the older folks too. Not being able to see their family and their grandkids is really tolling. So yeah, just figuring out how to stay connected with people in this digital age. There's a whole lot of apps that you can just kind of pick and choose from at this point.
Despite there being so many accessible alternative methods, though, to stay in touch with people, do you think that the extensive social distancing practices that were encouraged, do you think those are going to have lasting mental effects on our peers?
I think that finding ways to interact is just so important because that's how we're wired. And without it, I mean, it just reaps us with negative mental effects because humans are designed for community, really.
In a study conducted last April by Matthew Browning, who's an environmental psychologist at Clemson University, it was discovered that out of over 2,500 students, about 85% of those surveyed experienced high to moderate levels of distress as a result of the pandemic. It's important to note that none of these students were screened for pre-existing conditions like depression or anxiety, so you do have to factor that into it. But while we've already kind of touched on how the pandemic has attacked crucial social aspects of college life, what other changes brought on by the pandemic do you think play into the results of this survey and an overall mental decline of college students nationwide?
Other than social impacts of the pandemic are physical impacts, because when you're physically not feeling good, you're not mentally feeling good either. I mean, your brain is a part of your body. And so mental health and physical health are very closely tied. And with COVID-19, people are home. They're just sitting and, you know, doing work online or doing college online. That's a lot of blue light, and that can affect our sleep. And the average college student is not getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep like they should. And if you're not sleeping well, that also has negative effects. Not sleeping well can be tied with depression, and just to make that correlation. And so taking care of your body is also really important, considering that we're having to survive a pandemic here.
A switch to remote learning is something that I think our generation was pretty prepared for, because like you said, we already spend so much time staring at a screen. But I do think that despite that, college students are suffering in a lot of ways from remote learning.
Our teachers and our professors, I have a lot of respect for them right now. My mom is a high school teacher, and the way the world is working right now is everyone is expected to kind of be a scientist in a way, and have to discern through all the articles. And even the medical community is divided on so many issues, considering COVID-19. So they're having to factor that into account. And then also our teachers and professors are having to learn how to do remote learning. Like, that's not something that everyone already has a wide variety of knowledge about. So my mom, just thinking of her, is really having a hard time doing her teaching in-person classes, and then also having to do remote learning because it's basically double the work. So even from a teacher standpoint and a professor standpoint, I can see that as very challenging. And also for students who aren't used to this method, it's kind of brand new. Yes, there's been online school and online college before, but not to this level. And I even think about, with the bad weather happening this week, like, there's not going to be a snow day. You're not just going to get a day off, you know? Yeah. Now you're just at your computer instead of in the classroom, for a lot of the schools shutting down.
I think that the A-State faculty has done an excellent job, not just with the stuff you were talking about,
yeah,
but also with just being like transparent with the student body and consistently keeping students updated with like COVID-related protocols and updates.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's played a major part in easing the minds of students that still live on campus and still physically attend classes. It's been apparent to me, and I think to a lot of people from the very start of the pandemic, just how much the faculty, from the chancellor, like you said, to just instructors in general, just how passionate that they are about keeping students safe while still providing opportunities for them to have the best academic experience possible. Do you think there's anything else that A-State Jonesboro specifically has done to handle a pandemic correctly that we haven't mentioned?
I think they've done a really good job of advertising the resources that are available. Mm-hmm. Like, A-State has sent out plenty of emails and whatnot about, hey, the counseling center is available. It's free. If you need it or want it, you can get it. So I think they've done a good job of letting those students know what resources are available to them. And like you said earlier, I totally agree with you. They've been so transparent. Like, even though I'm doing online school this semester, when I was on campus last semester, I still felt safe walking around on a college campus with thousands of other students. So I think I know I sound like a broken record, but they've done a great job.
Well, thank you, Kinley, for taking the time to sit down with me and talk. I found this to be a pretty engaging and informing conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out and asking me to do this. This was fun.
Yeah, anytime. So to hear more from Kinley, to all of you viewing at home, I encourage you to visit livingloudly.org and keep up to date with her blogs.
We here at This Week at A-State would once again like to thank Kinley for taking the time to be involved with this segment. You can hear more from her at livingloudly.org, where she has just recently added a new blog post about learning to live contently. The link to that site, along with links to additional resources related to today's conversation, will be included in the description area of today's episode. This has been This Week at A-State. We thank you for tuning in, and we invite you to join us next week as Noah sits down with A-State student Audrey Smith to talk about the Campus Environmental Club. Until then, think positively, Red Wolves. The best days of your life are ahead of you. You just have to go live them.